Okay, so just a quick video today, but this is a big story. And I don't normally do this, but first off, I just want to ask from the outset, if you feel what's being discussed here today is important, please do share this on your social media. Please do share this with your friends. And we really need to raise awareness on this one, because this is a big deal. Google's recently done an update to their network architecture. Now, I am the first one to say I am not a massive techie. I don't fully understand the implications of what they've done here outside of the impact that it's had. Previously, developers of applications for Android could do something called domain fronting. Basically, what this would do is it would divert traffic coming in from the user via Google before it then got redirected to their servers, and vice versa in return. Now, what this does is, one, it takes advantage of Google's encryption, which, you know, company the size of Google, good luck breaking that one. And also, it hides your traffic amongst all of the other information that's flowing in and out of Google. And as Google is the single most visited website on the planet, it's a pretty good hiding place if you wanted to keep what you were doing secret, or if you wanted to circumnavigate government level controls on what you can and can't access. One of the things you tend to see, particularly at the moment when we've been looking at situations like the recent attempted revolution in Iran, Egypt in particular during the Arab Spring heavily used social media. And what you start to see is, as soon as the government starts cracking down, they shut down access to certain sites. So things like Twitter, Facebook, these are the first things to go. Now, what was previously possible under the old system was that, as I say, developers could route your traffic via Google and then onto themselves and back and forth and so on and so forth. Now, if you're using a small independent application, it's a lot easier to isolate your individual traffic and block it. And likewise, it's a lot easier to just block access to that site altogether than it is with Google. I mean, if you shut down Google, think about how many people around the world are using Google Docs, cloud services, YouTube, basic search functions, ad revenue. If you shut down Google, you are pretty much shutting down your digital economy to a certain extent. So it's always been really, really good camouflage for small developers to be able to hide traffic going through. And like I say, smaller developers perhaps can't afford to encrypt the traffic quite as well as somebody like Google's going to be able to, obviously. So it had a lot of knock-on effects. Now, Google's come out and they've said, oh, well, it wasn't originally intended to be a feature. It wasn't an intentional part of the software. It was a glitch. So we've not really taken anything away. But they have, because they've physically gone out of their way to fix the problem. Now, as far as I can tell, it was the only issue that it was fairly self-contained, in that it wasn't causing any issues with other parts of the platform. Now, if somebody wants to correct me on this, if somebody knows better, feel free to leave it in the comments, and I'll happily drop an update in if I'm wrong on this. But this is quite a big concern. If you've been paying attention to what's been going on in Iran, there's very much been a movement of either certainly if you're on the right side of the political spectrum, you're either a neocon chanting for war in Iran, or you're saying, well, we shouldn't be getting involved in this. This is not our fight. This is not our problem. We should just be turning a blind eye to it to a certain extent. Now, I kind of fell down the middle in that I said we should be supporting them, but not militarily. And this is precisely what I'm talking about. What you have right here is an opportunity to help the people in countries like Iran, where excessive crackdowns are going on right now. I mean, one of the big apps that was being used by the Iranian people, extensively so during the attempted sort of revolution and what have you, was Telegram. And the Iranian government have decided that they are going to block all access to it. And what they've said, interestingly enough, is that you're more than welcome to use domestic applications. You can use any Iranian-built application, but of course they're in a position to regulate those companies. They can apply their laws to these platforms. They can seize information. They can shut down servers. They can. It's no longer free. By being able to sort of dip in from the outside, you it's difficult to explain it because in terms of the law at least, the internet is quite nebulous. It's very difficult to establish jurisdiction. You have a signal that might be coming from the UK, which is then sent over to America. It might then be bounced off to somewhere else. And all of a sudden, you've got lots and lots of different countries with lots and lots of different regulations, rules, laws, etc. And we're going to come on to this shortly, because Facebook have been equally naughty, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But it's always been an issue of jurisdiction, and this is there are some who argue that the fundamental nature of the internet is it's pushing us towards, at least in its current form, some kind of one world government, because the only way you can really legislate the traffic, the only way you can apply a rule of law is via an international governing body. And well, that's another story for another day, but suffice it to say, you don't want to go there. And then we move on to Facebook. Facebook booked to put 1.5 billion users out of reach of new EU privacy laws. If a new European law restricting what companies can do with people's online data went into effect tomorrow, almost 1.9 billion Facebook Inc. users around the world would be protected by it. The online social network is making changes that ensure the number will be much smaller. Facebook members outside the United States and Canada, whether they know it or not, are currently governed by terms of service agreed with the company's international headquarters in Ireland. Next month, Facebook is planning to make the case for only European users, meaning 1.5 billion members in Africa, Asia, Australia and Latin America will not fall under the European Union's General Data Protection Regulation, which takes effect on May the 25th. Previously unreported move, which Facebook confirmed to Reuters on Tuesday, shows the world's largest online social network is keen to reduce its exposure to GDPR, which allows European regulators to fine companies for collecting or using personal data without users' consent. Now, obviously, take into account the fact that at the moment we are seeing endless stories coming out about how Facebook has been sharing people's data without their consent. It's been collecting information from hospitals without their consent, or at the very least trying to. And now they are specifically making a move, the only benefit from which will be that they can no longer be held accountable if they share people's data without their consent. So literally the only reason for doing this is to allow them to act in a nefarious manner, to allow them to abuse their customer base. And this is what I was talking about, this issue that you can just, as we see this sort of global economy meet the digital marketplace, we are seeing an issue whereby a company can simply skirt the laws by relocating offices, by relocating servers, by essentially having enough money that the law no longer has to apply to you if you don't want to. And bear in mind, Obama let them grow to this level. Antitrust suits could have been brought at any time to prevent this. But this is what I meant by having the opportunity to help people without getting military involvement. Think about what happened with the shootings down in Florida. We got introduced to that event by a young boy tweeting out photographs saying, "Oh my God, I'm scared. There's a shooter running around. Somebody please help us," or something to that effect. Suddenly, the eyes of the world were on it. Now, Google has an opportunity to assist those who are trying to overthrow oppressive, tyrannical governments. It has an opportunity to allow people who live under authoritarian states with massive state censorship, like, for example, China, to communicate with the outside world, to get an understanding of what's really going on in the world, and to break the spell of these propagandists. And Google has actively moved to suppress that ability. Whichever way they want to spin this, they have taken that ability away from developers to help those people. So much for do no harm. And Facebook, like I say, are talking about relocating their offices, relocating the home for those accounts, so that they can abuse people with impunity. There comes a point where you have to turn around and say enough is enough. We cannot keep funneling power into these organizations with no accountability and with radical agendas. So please, share this message, get the information out there, petition Google, call your congressman, just spread the word. Because that's what these authoritarian tyrants, whether they be the mullahs over in Iran or Mark Zuckerberg sitting behind his desk at Facebook HQ, as long as you can get eyes on it, they're going to be forced to withdraw. They're going to be forced to pull back to stop the abuse of these people. And that's why they don't want you to be able to anymore. And that's where all this censorship is going. That's it. I'm done.